Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Let's wake up a little bit more. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, much better. So welcome. We are continuing studying today, and it's going to be the last lecture of the month, Workers of the Last Hour, done by Jose Mussi. But before that, Sandra is going to do an initial reading for us and the prayer. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So nice to be back. So today I'm going to be doing the reading from the book Happy Hour from Divaldo Pereira Franco and Joana de Angelis. Never lose hope. Whatever may happen, keep believing. If everything is against you and failure threatens you with despair, even then expect divine assistance. Only what is best for us happens. The law of God is the law of love, and love can do everything and does do everything. When you think that help will not arrive in time, if you continue hoping, you will happily discover that it's reached your minutes before the disaster. The person who despairs has already lost part of the battle he was going to fight, and goes forward at a disadvantage. So let's close our eyes, elevate our thoughts to God, our Creator, to Jesus, our Master of Love, our guiding light. And let us be thankful for the day, for being here together, for the learning and being inspired by Jesus and His workers who are here with us. Let us ask Jesus to inspire Joe in his lecture, and be inspired by his words, and above all, by Jesus' love. So be with us. So be it. Thank you so much, Joe.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's been a while since I've been up here, so it's a real pleasure to be back. Missed a lot of you guys, a lot of vacations, but now we're back to the work, and nothing more appropriate than a lecture about the workers of the last hour. I've done this lecture a couple of times already, and I enjoy very much, basically because I don't get it. And it's one of those parables that Jesus left us with, that it is complex because it challenges our material view of things with what the spiritual view of those same things should be. Now, try to make this a little bit clearer during the lecture. It's a great day outside, kind of cold, rainy, but it's warm in here. The hearts and the souls of those who are here, incarnated, discarnated, or those who are joining us through the internet, is a great joy for all of us. So let's enjoy. Hope you can learn a little bit. I always learn every time I study for this lecture, and I learn more every time I have to say something about it. A lot of the things we're going to be showing here today, I extracted from the Gospel According to Spiritism, a fundamental book from Kardec's codification of Spiritism. It talks about, of course, the gospel of Jesus Christ and its interpretation from a Spiritist lens, point of view. And, of course, Jesus left us many, many lessons, many of them in the form of parables. But just a few were actually chosen to be part of this book. And the one we're going to hear about today, we're going to study today, The Workers of the Last Hour, has a particular big presence in the book. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why Kardec and the spirits bring that parable to us so strongly for us to ponder and consider. We begin with one of the tenets of the Spiritist doctrine and faith, is that we cannot follow a faith that's purely irrational just because somebody tells us that that should be our faith. Unshakable faith. Unshakable means faith that will sustain itself, not through the easy times, but through the hard times. When we are questioned, when we are challenged in our faith, but more importantly, when we challenge ourselves in that same faith. So he brings to us that unshakable faith is the only the kind that can stand face to face with reason in all human epochs. So he's telling us that as we evolve, both individually as a society, we're learning new things. Science is evolving, technology, social relations are changing all the time. But if we are going to have true faith, it must survive that evolution. It has to be based on concepts and foundations that are unshakable. That the more we evolve, the more that faith will make sense to us. And that is a lot of the essence of the gospel according to Spiritism. It's a faith that was brought to us a lot of lessons 2,000 years ago, over 2,000 now. And we need to revisit it often to validate that we still understand it and we still believe in it. Because if for whatever reason we learn and we evolve beyond that, we have to adapt our faith. So it's not the original faith that was correct. And I told you about this parable having a particular importance in the gospel according to Spiritism. And in fact, there's a whole chapter on it. Chapter 20. And if you enjoyed the lecture today, I do encourage you to go back and read it, maybe for the first time, maybe for the 20th time, as we often do in Kardec's book. Because every time you will pick up something new, a little bit more understanding, and it will be easier to understand the full impact of the words to us in our actions. And basically this chapter looks at three things, right? The last shall be first, the mission of the Spiritists and workers of the Lord. A lot of things, a lot of different things coming out of one parable. In this parable, over the various Christian faiths and Bible studies have gotten many different names, right? One of them is called the laborers in the vineyard, just because the story talks about workers who have been called to be paid for one day worth of work. Now Jesus, as we know, used parables that were understandable to those he was speaking to. So he talked about farming. He talked about everyday life in the first century. He talked about fishing. Things that, if we were there 2,000 years ago, and we probably were, it would be things that we lived every day. Things that allowed us to start to pick up attention of something that is familiar to us. But then Jesus does something incredible. He brings it in a totally unsuspecting fashion and makes every one of them think, why is that the case? That's not intuitive to me. That's not how I thought about these things. And this is very much the same impression that anybody, even today, if reading this parable for the first time, you would come up and say, this doesn't make sense, Joe. It simply doesn't. And there's another parable that's very similar to this one, and I'll see if anybody can pick up which one it is. But let's talk about the laborers in the vineyard. So the kingdom of heaven, and this is Jesus speaking, is like the father of a family who went out at daybreak in order to hire workers to work in the vineyard. Still common today, but it was basically what happened at that time. People were hired on a day-per-day basis. They were day workers, especially when time of harvest came in. We had to bring in a great number of new people to help out in the farm. you will hire them not for the whole harvest. You will not hire them for production. You will hire them as little as you could for one day, and at the end of the day, you will pay them for the work. It still happens today, where people are hired on a day per day, but now we tend to have more stable work if we can. But that was the practice. So far, it makes a lot of sense. We have an owner of a vineyard who goes out there and hires workers. But now he's saying that the kingdom of heaven is like that. So people listening to this are thinking, well, does the Lord come in every day and hire workers for one day worth of work? What do they mean by that? So he explains. So the father, having agreed with the workers that he would pay them 1 denarius. I don't know if that was the going price at the time, but probably was something close. 1 coin. So you work for me a whole day and I'll give you 1 coin. And he sent them, go work, right? And then what would happen is, what we understand is that he didn't get enough workers. This is the peak of the harvest. He needed more workers, but when he went out there first thing in the morning to try to find them, he hired those who were available, who were willing, but there weren't enough. So the third hour, and I read some explanation that the first hour usually was 6 a.m., so he's around 9 a.m. now, going back to wherever the workers would stay looking for a job. And he went there and he found other people. Those who kind of woke up a little bit late or maybe had to come from farther distance and arrived late. So they weren't there the first time he did his call. So now there were more. And he said, great, you go also to my vineyard and I'll give you what is reasonable. And there they were. They were happy. They have a job now. Again, he went out on the 6th and the 9th. So obviously it's a big state. He needed more and more workers. And every time he would go out, he would do the same thing. And he would go there often to this place to get new workers. And in the 11th hour, so what is the 11th hour? Who's doing the math? 5 p.m. Right? So this is what Jesus is talking to the folks. It's the end of the day. Now, harvests usually are late summer, early fall, so the days are still a little bit long, not too short like winter, but it's starting to get dark there. And he goes out there and he still sees people showing up at 5 o'clock. And he asks, you had nothing to do? What were you doing all day without working? Kind of saying you're kind of lazy, weren't you? Or you were kind of too relaxed. But you know what? They told him that nobody had hired them. They had come in, other fathers or owners of vineyards had come in, and nobody hired them. They didn't find someone to work for. So the father was pleased and said, okay, you two, you can come and work in my vineyard. It's going to be a short day for these guys, right? So at the end of the day, everybody is tired, right? They clean up everything. They bring in all of the grapes that they harvested. They put it in whatever area they needed to put in. And as usual, the landowner would have his treasurer come in and bring the coins that he was going to pay the laborers. Right? So everybody's trying to get in line. But the owner, the father, in this case, in the parable, the Lord says, call the workers and pay them. But bring the last ones first. So bring them in the reverse order in which they started to work with me. Right? So those who came the 11th hour were the very first in line to get paid. And those who were there in the first hour were the very last. All right? Then they started to give out the money. And to the surprise of everyone, these people who were the 11th hour got the full pay, the whole denarius. So if you're sitting in the back of the line and you're seeing the owner, pay one full coin for a few hours' work, what are you thinking? What do you think? What would you think?
It's not fair.
No, we're greedy. We think better than that. We're greedy. So he says, if he's going to give them 1 denarius for a couple hours, he's going to give me a bonus. Right? Because I'm so good, I worked so hard, I produced so much, I have 5 times more grapes to my name than those fellows who just kind of lazed around all day and didn't do anything. So everybody is eagerly awaiting their turn, hoping for what? To get the bigger reward for all of the great things they have done. Right? So those who were hired first came in their turn, believing they would be given more. But each one received what? 1 denarius. And when they saw that, what would you do if you saw that? Then you would say, it's not fair, right?
Yes.
These last workers worked 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who bore the load of the heat of the day. So you have kind of a revolt, a mutiny. Workers thinking that they were cheated. So what's wrong with the picture? Were they cheated?
No,
Why not?
because they got what they were promised.
Correct. Right? My arrangement with my employer, or as we see with my Lord, has nothing to do with his arrangement with anybody else. Now, was the Lord playing favorite for those who only worked an hour? Was he the owner of the farm? Let's go back to the physical world. Was the owner of the farm being too generous and throwing away good money at bad workers? Now, that's the real question that we have here. Nobody really questions when reads that those who worked the full day should not be paid what they were promised. But why would those who worked so little be paid the same? That's complicated. In our economical math, in our head, in terms of reward for work, it doesn't add up. So the Lord is trying to explain to them, the owner is trying to explain to them, my friend, I have done you no wrong. Did you not agree with me on 1 denarius for your day's work? Take what belongs to you and go. As for me, I wish to give to the last as much as to you. It is not permitted for me to do what I want. People would agree, not be happy about it. And he goes and says something really important. And is your eye evil? So are you giving me hatred or reprimand because I am good? Would that encourage people for the next day to be the worker of the last hour, not the one of the first hour?
For sure.
It might. It might. But what is the guarantee that this father would be as generous to you, who gave up what you were working for something that is just convenient? Go back to a couple of slides and remember, why were those workers not working before? They didn't find a place to work. It's not that they weren't willing to work. They just didn't have the right luck or conditions, or were not at the right place at the right time to be hired. The Father sees that. That's one piece that we must not forget. Matthew also makes this very clear by saying, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. For many are called, but few are chosen. Yeah, that's a complicated one too. Right? Who are the ones called? The ones in the beginning of the line or the ones at the end of the line? Correct. Everyone was called. Right? But few are chosen. That's a difficult part as well. Chosen. Who's making the choice? Whose choice is it? Few are chosen for what? For the work. But who's making the choice? Those in line are making the choice. And we'll see how this comes back to my original question is, why is this parable so relevant and important to Spiritists? And why was it decided to be a full chapter in the Gospel according to Spiritism? So now we're going to see a message that starts to explain this to us. This is also from the very same chapter. So, good Spiritists, my dearly beloved, you are all workers of the last hour. Okay, so we're not the ones who were there at the first hour. We're the ones you were thinking were the lazy ones who did nothing for 11 hours and then suddenly at the last minute shows up. Why would anyone perceive us to be that way? Imagine we're back time travel to the 19th century when Kardec is putting forward the Spiritist doctrine. How many other Christian faiths are there? Dozens. Of course, Catholic, Protestants, Baptists, and so forth. How long have they been working? 2,000 years, 1,900 years, right? And here comes the Spiritists with the answer to everything, kind of telling, or at least in my perception, if I'm becoming defensive as one of those Christians, telling us that what we're doing was wrong. Right? That now these Spiritists come in at the last minute and they solve all of the problems. And imagine if you're one of those Christians who are considering become Spiritists. Would you not question yourself? What can I do now? If we were wrong for so long, how can God forgive us and give us any reward for the work that we begin to do now? So it's a valid question. And one that we still would have today. Because many of us probably were not born into a Spiritist house. That's the case with me. I became Spiritist not too long ago. Maybe 8 years ago. So it's more than a few years between my birth and my becoming Spiritist.
In this incarnation.
Of course, in this incarnation. So we need to understand that does this mean that we're second class, that we need to go through another 15 incarnations before we can actually make a difference? Well, the parable tells us that that's not the case. But how? Okay, so the message continues. We are all workers of the last hour. We have been called. We hadn't found exactly what we wanted before. We weren't there at the right time, or the call that was made for work did not entice us. And then finally there was this call at the 11th hour, and we came. So this is a perfect description of Spiritism. The one who says, I begin work at daybreak and will finish only at nightfall, would be very proud. But you all came when you were called. Some a little earlier, like Sandra said in other incarnations. Some a little later. To the incarnation whose shackles you bear. So we're shackled to this incarnation and we're trying to do our best. However, for how many centuries has the Lord been calling you to his vineyard without you wanting to enter it? Now, we don't know the answer to this, but we have a feeling that we've been called so often that now somehow, not to do any kind of word games here, but the coin has dropped, right? And now we believe. We have that unshakable faith that Kardec talks about. But will we be rewarded the same than others who have been in this battle maybe from the first century, in many incarnations, battling and working in the vineyards of the Lord? Aren't they more deserving of the grace and promises that we all believe in? Why do we deserve to be treated like them? Now is the time for you to receive your wages. Employ the time you have remaining well, and never forget that your existence, no matter how long it may seem to you, is only a fleeting instant in immensity of time, comprising eternity to you. So this is Spirit Constantine. It's a protector spirit. He shows up many times in the Gospel according to Spiritism. Now is the time for you to receive your wage. What is our wage? And here is where we need to flip the parable in a way that we do not expect. Is the wage the coin? Is that our reward? Is that what will make us happy? What is our reward? Now, I know tomorrow's Halloween, so I'm going to scare you, because our reward is the work, not the coin at the end of the work. So, those workers who've been receiving, working from day one, from the first hour, they've been receiving their reward all along. The coin is just the target. It's the promise. But the reward is the work that we do. If we don't believe that, then we do not really understand what it is to be a Spiritist. So are we getting what we deserve? Absolutely. For every time we work, we have our reward. And those who've been working there should not focus on the destination, but focus on the journey that they have been graced with. Because there is no greater glory than working in the vineyard of the Lord. That's the twist. So if you come at the end of the day and you think that you worked hard and it was a sacrifice, then you miss the whole journey. That's what the parable is trying to teach us. And that's what I meant by the fact that we need to flip the material with the spiritual. Because materially, yes, we're working, it's hard, it's hot, it might be raining, there's bugs everywhere, right? My hands get hurt, my feet get tired. I'm doing a sacrifice. And I'm doing the sacrifice because I want that coin. That is the material view of working in a vineyard. The spiritual view is, I want to make that vineyard grow. I want it to be beautiful. I want it to make it a good place for many other workers to come join me. Each one of those little gains, wins that you make is your reward. Because as Spiritists, if we do not believe that working in that vineyard is a glory, it's a mercy, it's a gift, a divine gift that's been given to us, why would we want anybody else to join us? Come, join and work for eternity. That's the promise that we get with Spiritism, right? Yes, we're going to work for eternity, but we're going to enjoy every minute of it. And the more we work, the more we're going to be rewarded. So as workers of the last hour or the 11th hour, we come very eager. Because we've been waiting for 11 hours. And now we understand that the time has come for us to roll up our sleeves and be blessed with the opportunity to do the Lord's work. And every day, at the end of the day, rather than expect a coin, we should just say a prayer of thank you for the great opportunity that that day has been to us, to do charity, to love people, to help others, and to learn. The evolution of our intellectual and our moral capabilities is our objective in this and every other life that we've had and that we will have in the future. And if we can do this as a worker of that vineyard, that will be our happiness. That's what's going to be rewarding to us. Because that coin could be many, many incarnations in the future. Right? We're still starting the journey. So we better enjoy it. It's like a long car ride. If you don't enjoy the car ride, you're going to get to your destination a wreck. But on the other hand, if you make the journey fun, if you make the journey rewarding to you, if you're learning, if you're getting close to people, if you're helping people, the journey is a great gift. So let's continue. As the last to arrive, Spiritists profit from the intellectual endeavors of their predecessors, because humans must inherit from humans and their endeavors, and results are collective. God bless solidarity. So why can we be so eager? Why are we so ready? Because we have been inheriting all these lessons of the evolution of humanity, technology, science, moral guidance, right? So are we just bumping up in somebody else's work? Well, in some cases, in many cases, yes. But let's not forget that we were alive in previous incarnations when we were doing that same work ourselves. So we're doing some of the planting and the seeding in one life that we may only collect many lives later. And by doing so, we're not alone. You will never see a single person working a vineyard. But all the grapes, when collected, where do they go? They go together. They're all working together to build this result together. So God blesses this because part of our mission is not to evolve alone, it's to evolve with everyone. This is not a competition. This is a journey where everybody has to go together. And here is the importance of reincarnation to all of this story. Jesus does not go into this point in his parable. It's not about reincarnation. But we know that the work we're doing are planting, yet in some cases, just the seeds of what will be a much bigger vineyard years and generations from now. So, excuse me, reincarnation, that wonderful tenet, both immortalizes and defines spiritual filiation. The spirit understands the continuity of the task, interrupted but always resumed once again. So this life might be a very short hour for us, but you know what? We come back again, and we're no longer the last ones. There are new generations of spirits that we will be helping to be those. And all workers of the first and last hour will, with their eyes open to the profound justice of God, no longer complain, but simply worship. Worship? Think work. Now, back to last will be first. Kind of still doesn't make a lot of sense. If somebody's been working in the vineyard from the very beginning, why would we go to the end of the line? Does that make sense? When we read it, it sounds strange to us. But in reality, we practice this. If we have a huge lineup, do we not create a special line for those with special needs or the elderly? Why do we do that? Because they need help. Right? Because they have something that makes them be assisted by others. So why would we, workers of the first, second, even the 10th hour, because that's what we're going to be, why would we not bring our brothers and sisters who are now just coming for the first time to do their work? Why would we not put them in front so they can understand the full beauty, the full divine gift that it is to be a worker? Ship is sinking. Who do we put in the boats first? The healthy big guy? The strongest sailor that's in the ship that's helping, everybody? No. We put those who we think need a little bit of help. And that's what God is saying, is that we need to put those first. Because they have come. But they may not have yet that full unshakable faith. They are willing. But many will be called. Many will come to be in the beginning of the line. Many will want to be workers at the 11th hour, but maybe not all of them will stay there. Working in the vineyard of the Lord is a grace, but it's hard work. And if you're not understanding what you're doing, and if you continue to see that as a sacrifice, what's going to happen to your perseverance? You might give up. And if we see someone who is giving up something that we believe is a great gift, what should we do? Help them. Bring them up. Give them the notion of what they are missing. But that's, we're going to see warnings about that. So this is the one true meaning of this parable. Like all parables that Jesus addresses to the people, beneath it forms an image. It contains the seed of the future, as well as the revelation of the magnificent unity that harmonizes all things in the universe. And that solidarity that reconnects all present beings to the past and future. So that's another spirit, quoted in the Gospel according to Spiritism. Unity, harmony, everybody working in the vineyard. That's what we want. Just because we are the first or the 10th hour workers, or even the 11th hour worker, what right do we have to feel superior to the others who have not come yet? Understand that the work we do in the vineyard is to make it better, bigger, so we can do what? Bring more workers to it. And that we are no better or no worse than those who are coming. So what is the mission of Spiritus? So the time is near for the fulfillment of those things proclaimed for the transformation of humankind. Blessed will be those who have worked in the Lord's field selflessly and with no other motive than charity. That should be the main reason why we're working. For charity, not for the reward itself. Not for that coin, which is the perfection that we want to achieve in a very distant future. To become a pure spirit. We got so much work ahead of us. But we have to be selfless. And this is a wonderful thing that we do. The lives that we decided to live, we share with others because it's so good. Right? And this comes in every aspect of the charity we do every day of our lives. So this is the Spirit of Truth. Continuing, God is taking a census of the faithful servants and is taking note of those who only have the appearance of devotion, so that they may not usurp the wages of the courageous servants, because it is for those who do not recoil before their task that God will entrust the most difficult positions in the great work of regeneration through Spiritism. And these words will be fulfilled. The first will be the last, and the last will be the first in the kingdom of heaven. So God is taking a census. Is God judging us? Why is he taking note? It's because he sees that Sandra is a harder worker than Joe, so Sandra must be rewarded and Joe must be pushed apart. What happens to us when we work well?
We feel good.
Yes? Yes, why do we work more? Because more responsibility is given to us. So, what the Spirit of Truth is telling us is God will entrust the most difficult positions. So as we evolve, as we work hard, and we come back for a new incarnation, we're going to have a tougher mission. Every time, more responsibility, more work. Because we have demonstrated that we're in this, not for appearance, but because we believe it. It's our devotion that's driving us. Has God forgotten all of the other people who are not there yet? No. What's the truth about the Lord's flock? Nobody will be left behind. Everyone will be a laborer of the last hour sometime in their evolution. And it's those who come before who plant the seed. The Christians that came before the Spiritists planted a lot of seeds and did a lot of the work. We take on and continue that work. We have not come here to destroy the work, but to build and grow the work. Now, from a great book called The Messengers, written by Chico Xavier, but from the Spirit, André Luiz. So this is André Luiz, this is a Spirit Tobias speaking to André Luiz in the spiritual world and explaining how this works. What we just said, who comes to do the work of the Lord? Who comes with their mission, and how do they fare at the end of their lives? So it says thousands of qualified messengers leave here. But the ones who actually succeed are rare indeed. Some manage to accomplish their task partially, but most fail completely. Real service is not just an idea. It involves effort, without which the work can neither begin nor prevail. So it's a bit disheartening to read these words, that we know how many are sent down with this message, with this mission, and now we hear that most fail completely. Why do we fail? We give up. And we give up because we're imperfect. The temptations, our primitive feelings, our unworthy thoughts, these come back to us. We have not yet overcome. No matter how much good intentions we have when we start something, and that something could be a new life, or could be a new job, or could be, I'm going to paint my whole house by myself. Good intentions are easy. Sticking to the end, that is hard. But that is what is required. So Tobias is explaining to André Luiz, that's why so many are sent out. Because a small fraction will succeed. But that's okay. That's how it is. God knows that. And He will continue to bring more messengers, more workers. And every time it gets a little bit better. Because we learn and we believe. Okay, so now this comes from Paul. Now you can talk about workers of the last hour. How about Paul? right? Paul not only was not a worker in his first major part of his life, he was an anti-worker. He was determined to make a difference by undermining the newly born Christianism that had just come before, in his lifetime. But we later know that he was one of those 1,000 messengers that were sent down. And he was a very, very important one. And still, his life, his choices, made him go in the opposite direction. But at one point, who wakes him up? He has a vision. He sees Jesus on his way to Damascus. And his life is changed forever. Quite traumatically, because he was failing. And he didn't know that. Just as we could be failing today, and we may not know. Now, not all of us will have to experience Jesus coming personally to talk to us and give us a message, but he does come to us through his words. The messages are there. We just have to listen. So Paul defines the roles of a good person, which are very valid for an action for a Spiritist. So what can we do to acquire perfect understanding of Christ's design? Well, we love. After all, that was the one word that Christ Jesus came to earth to teach us. Love. Not the love that we knew, not even the love that we know today, but a love that is all encompassing. How can we proceed in order to grow richer, not in money, but in divine virtues? Because he had ordered us to love even our enemies. That's the work. Right? We love through what? How do we demonstrate our love? What is love in action? Charity. And what is the work of the vineyard? Charity. What measures can we adopt against the destructive discouragement? How do we avoid not being one of those thousands who do not achieve their mission, who give up, who fail? Hope. We have to have hope, right? And how are we to reconcile the grand lessons of the Gospels with human indifference, injustices, and difficulties? We forgive. We forgive because we know that those people are not ready to become workers yet. Their time will come. We can plant little seeds. Right? Hope is faith. Forgiveness is also charity. Thank you very much.
It's not that easy.
It's Halloween. It had to be scary.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have anyone has any questions, comments? Anyone online?
More easy.
No. But it's fun. It's worthy. It's divine, the work that we do. Either to help ourselves, forgive ourselves, or help others and forgive others.
So I have a question. How do we apply all of this in the Spirit's house?
The Spirit's house is the place where we come to be reminded, first and foremost, of the difficulties and the glory of being a worker. It teaches us, gives us the tools, and the tools are the gospel, it's the codification. It gives us the instruction, the education, the ability to study, to know what are we doing wrong. Self-knowledge, that's where we begin, right? But we have to understand how that's going to play out in our lives. How do we fit all of this into our lives? And there's also a place like we have today here on a cold Sunday morning that we come together to listen, to think, to ask questions, to discuss, and to kind of ponder Am I a messenger? Am I fulfilling my mission? But I also say, in the Spiritist house is the place that I find the realization of the joy of being a worker. Everything outside seems hard, seems tiring. The Spiritist house is a place where the more you work, the more recharged you feel. See the happy faces, the smiles, even the tears that come. These are all ways that we connect to each other. That connection is the reward. It's part of the reward that we have.
Where we learn to grow morally through the work, through the constant work and the discipline in favor of ourselves.
Yes, we begin, again, we do things in our material life that reflect quite a bit what the spiritual lessons are without realizing. So, in a plane, if you're with a child, and the masks come down, what do you do first? Why? Why do you put the mask on you first? Because you have to be prepared. You have to be in a position to help others. So many people come to the Spiritist house when they're vulnerable, or they're going through suffering, pain, losses, sometimes a lot of confusion. Someone from outside says, well, these people are so selfish. They don't come to the Spiritist house to learn about Spiritism when everything is great in their lives. They come when everything seems lost. That's okay. Right? There's no problem with that. It's understanding that you have faith that it can get better. Because you wouldn't come here if you had no faith. You wouldn't come and ask help in the Spiritist house if you didn't think that there was a chance that you could be helped. It is an act of humility and an act of hope that, as you read, it's about us getting stronger by being around other people who are so willing to help you. And then you will have your turn in doing the same for the next worker of the 11th hour who comes in to the house.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone that joined us online. We are now going to prepare ourselves to our passes. So I ask you guys to keep your mind down and start your prayers.